See? Look at that. It's clever, isn't it? Or not, that is the first 2 loads of 4. It's a bright and early Saturday morning. Tom's here. I'm going to load him up and we're going to start laying out these fences. Or I say we, Tom's going to do most of it. I'm just going to film along the way. So my next job is to get the drone up just to double check where the posts are going to go, because we want it to look good from the sky too. So I have done a pretty terrible job of filming fencing so far, but I promise there'll be more. There's been, I think we're doing 400 metres or more this weekend. So over here, next door have their fence and we've just been grazing up against that from our side. But because these grants have come about, we've actually put in for fencing and hedging. You can claim your fencing allowance, providing it's either protecting a waterway or hedging. So we wanted to get a hedge in here at some point anyway, so it's just hand in hand. We've been able to get this new stock fence in. And what that means is that our sheep are at least 2 metres away from any neighbouring flocks. So from a biosecurity point of view, or if we want to go back to being MV accredited, then we need that as a requirement. And of course now we've got this nice little corridor here, which will have to wait till next winter really before we can plant the hedging. So that'll be a bit of a no man's land for now, and then we will do the prep work needed, get the hedging in, and then this fence will protect it, or the fencing will protect it from both sides as it takes off, and obviously as it becomes an established hedge, it's not going to get continually browsed and just nailed by sheep and goats. We're up here at the top corner. This all used to be part of the same farm. Now next door's farm that way has a gate there still, which was useful in the summer because that's where we came through for baling and cutting all the hay and things like that. However, I didn't really want it to be a single gate there because we had problems back in November. You remember when their ram got in. If I don't put a gate there, I'll just rail it off or put some stock fencing there, and that will just become part of that no man's land where the hedging is. And then any minute now this fence will be pulled that way. We've gone with tannalised because it's just been a nightmare to get hold of all sorts of posts, to be honest. We did creosote to start with, which tend to last longer and seem to be a better wood. However, these were the only ones we could get hold of. They're machined tannalised, and they seem fairly slow grown, if you can make out where the rings are, and they're in size, so hopefully that treatment's gone in. And the ones that split a couple of the fields from our land had these in about 19 years ago, I think, looking at Google Maps, and they've held up okay. So fingers crossed these will be all right up here on this better drained soil. As part of all this work is to put in some established trees in along the hedgerows. And the reason for that is because, as well as just having these sort of linear hedgerows. You want taller, mature trees where wildlife can fly from one to the other, and that sort of thing. And also it's going to, more importantly for me at least, create shade for our livestock in these fields, because it's very open up here, and in the height of summer, at least for the next 5 years or so before these trees get established, I'm definitely going to need to be able to create some sort of field shelter up here, not for weather as such, but for shade. Down here, this is the bottom line here. It's not attached to the post, but that is kind of being strained between right at the top of the field and right at the bottom, and that becomes our string line. All of these posts are now bang on that line. Occasionally you'll get one kick across, like here it's either hit a rock or something, or a rabbit hole, and that's kind of just is what it is. Right, we're up here on the far side now, and while all of the fencing around the perimeter is part of the grant stewardship stuff that we're doing, the internal fencing that we are getting done at the same time is just our own. We've had that added on because we want to create some smaller paddocks up here. We've got the rams, we've got the goats and other smaller groups of animals that we want to be able to split off from the rest of the bigger fields. Maybe we'll do a video more on these grants that are available, but one of the requirements for fencing off a hedge is that the fence has to be 1.2 meters out from the inside centre point of that hedge. You can see this hedge here is about 10 foot deep. It's crazy. So we're good there. We've come out enough. The other requirement is we definitely need to remove all old fencing. When I say old stuff, this is just about as much fencing as I've got to mess around with. So there's just some barbed wire here that's been twisted to fill a bit of a hole to stop cows getting through. But apart from that, most of this was just relying on the hedge to keep stock in, and no doubt it just about was sufficient for cows, or when it was the dairy, or they just had a single strand of electric maybe. But there's not too much, fortunately, to remove in there. I promise you I will get a bit more footage when we're doing the wire tomorrow, or we or they. See here, it just turns the corner, so following up, and then it comes around. That's why it's around the back of this post here, and then from then on it's going to be on the inside of the post all the way up. Chris has gone up there to just kind of get it around the corners. I'll go up. It's quite tricky when they're flopping around. Rabbits everywhere around here. Right, I did my token bit of lifting up a bit of fence. I'm really hands off on this occasion because I've got to keep doing plumbing and all sorts of tedious stuff, even though I'd much rather be out here. But I think they've got everything they need. I need to get a bit more fencing out of the barn, so they've got it. And my job is like every few hours just to forklift a few bits onto the trailer and leave them to it, which for once feels really quite nice. Right, it's another day. And it's another day of fencing. Tom's here already. I need to go around and check all the lambs, make sure they survived the howler of a monsoon we had last night. And then we'll make a start. Everyone manage alright? And they're you. Number 8 triplets. Hooray! So when you look up from here now, you might be able to make out the posts at the top of the field there, splitting off 2 half-acre paddocks right along the far edge. As well as that, we need somewhere for the goats to go out imminently because they don't need to be in a barn anymore. They need desperately to get out and enjoy the outside weather, bit of sunshine, some fresh grass, and hopefully some stock-proof fencing. So what we're going to do is make piggy bank from last year into goat bank. As we reach the bottom of the paddock here, as it goes through to the meadow, this gate's going to get swung the other way, we've got a track that's going to follow the left hand side of this hedge all the way down to the lake field. Just about making out our tire marks there, so it'll be to the left of that, so it'll leave a nice track area all the way along. So anyway, the end of this bank area, which is too steep for mowing or anything like that, and it's a really perfect spot for the goats. We're going to have a 12-foot gate here between a new double fence here, which is going to be planted up with a hedgerow and trees. So that will need its kind of 2 metre, 2.4 metre space between, which is a huge amount of land to lose, but it leaves a nice amount of space for the hedge and wildlife corridor, and it will link basically the hedges and trees up there to the main hedge lines down here. So we're using the same posts again, these machined ones. It's soft ground down here, but you can see I've asked Tom to come up a metre or two from the lower area, which is where it does get boggy. So where you can see all these rushes and reeds and stuff, that is too soft, and I don't think the post would last, and it makes sense to bring them up onto this harder ground. Therefore, we're just going to follow the contour of the bank around. That also leaves a little bit of a raised section on the other side, which, if it really came to it and we had livestock in the flood meadow and it did flood, at least they've got something to retreat to if they're clever enough. Didn't take much to bang it in, did it?
Yeah. Do the curve. Chris is going down switching in there.
You can get quite an angle on your bit.
Yeah,
Yeah. I guess if you're driving in.
yeah, backwards and
Yeah, on an angle. We'll continue all the way along the bottom of the bank, and it will head up to this end where we've got a really old stock fence between us and next door. We've got another hedgerow to plant, and the grant allows for a new fence on the inside of that to protect the new planted hedgerow. So that hedge will go in, and then we'll have we need to do 1.2 metres this side of the new hedge with the fence line. So that's why Tom started off this morning putting in the strainer post right at that far end to work this line off. You can see here, this one here will be basically where the fence ends, and we lose this much. I say we lose it, but this gets dedicated to the hedging. The nice thing is I've set it so that these two trees end up within the hedge line, and then we've got another tree. We've got trees going in every 20 metres along the hedging, so you come up 20 metres probably from that one there. One will have a tree somewhere around here, I guess. And then up here, when you get to the top, it follows around. These pylons are going to be coming out next week, so I'm going to reconfigure up there a bit so you can drive through where those pig arcs are. You can get around to where these two rams are waiting for their big release day, which should be tomorrow. Nice thing is the goats will do most of the work here for me, providing that this is stock proof enough for the next week. So all of this, if they can eat that back for me, that'd be great. And you can see in here there's a bit of sheep netting, single strand of barb there, and it's all a bit dilapidated, but hopefully we can get all of that just to buy me probably 3-4 weeks of stock proofing. I set some electric off it if needs be, But all of this will be cleared then, and we can then just work out how we're going to bring either the hedgerow up or the fencing across, and maybe even put a gate in up here. So what I'd like to do is to be able to let the goats back up to maybe even one of these big pig arks as a field shelter at night, so they could, where you can see this stock fence here, I have one of those facing this way, maybe they can go through. And then the other thing to do is to put a little 3-foot gate in somewhere along this old post and rail, which is also being replaced, and that will just mean that we can walk through with livestock or just us to get to this bank. The boys are a bit fed up in here. We have a bit of a love-hate relationship, don't we, Samson? He tends to charge at me a lot, but then also can't resist the head rub, so we're okay, aren't we? And this is Freddo. So they'll be moving up to their top paddock very soon. And then this fence here is going to be replaced. So I have allowed for a hedge to go in all the way down here. One side of that will be horse netting, which is basically a fine mesh for our paddock. And then there'll be another normal stock fence on the left. So we can reroute this a little bit up onto the flatter side, but I want to be able to still maintain this gateway here. I'll tell you what, you missed an absolute monsoon just now. We're in the process of getting the last few bits done on the fencing, and poor Tom was out there whilst I was inside editing. Anyway, my quick task is to get one of the gates that we've taken off and replaced up to the top corner, so Tom can hang that up onto the post and he can go home and warm up and dry off. And while I probably could lug it up there, it's a pretty heavy gate. What I've found is all these older gates are here on the farm already, apart from the rusty ones. They're way better, heavier duty than these modern ones I'm buying now. I guess the steel's thicker, they're probably better galvanised, and they're probably going to last longer. They might even outlast the ones I've just bought. But anyway, we're going to reuse it, put it up the top, because that one will be alright for things like sheep and goats up the top, whereas this bottom paddock we're trying to use mesh gates or half mesh gates, so it's more suitable for poultry and the lambs and things like that. Not really a fan of taking the tractor out when it's just tipped it down so much, because it'll chew up the grass, but we've got to get it done because I need to get those rams out in the grass and they need a gate. So we're actually meant to have a team here today from National Grid laying underground high voltage lines, but something tells me they're a bit of a fair weather crew, because they were meant to be here at 7 or 8 o'clock this morning and never showed up. So all that last minute trenching to get it all ready might have been in vain. You reckon? Second one down. Looks like it should work. We didn't take the hedge with us. Now watch this. Watch this gate swing. Probably the first one that we've ever had that just opens. Watch. What that does mean though is we've got to navigate this ditch without falling in it. Shall I hang it off the tractor? That would be talented, wouldn't it? I'd love to say I could just slide it off the fork straight onto the pins.
You tell me up or down?
Are you up? Up again. Up a bit more.
Yeah, slight adjustment needed. Yeah, a little bit.
Stop closing. It looks like it's way off, but it's not a million miles off. It just needs a bit of adjustment. Self-opening, see? Look at that. clever, isn't it? Strictly speaking, I think that's a cow gate. 1, 2, 3, well, it's 6 bars. So it's slightly wider spacing, whereas the new gates that we're getting, well, we've got some that are mesh, and then the other ones are 7 bar. Which just means you've got smaller gaps down the bottom, with the idea that the lambs can't go through. Right, this morning we are making the most of our new fencing. The rams are going out after a few months of being in the yard, so they're in the trailer. The trailer is also our kind of mobile welfare unit for the lambs, so it's going to go back up into the lamb paddock for shelter in a bit. Yes. Right, you hold that your side. Okay, we need to work them through. Go on, boys. They got this whole little paddock to themselves now.